the look. She's a juvenile scam, never was a quitter, tasting like a raindrop. She's got the look. And she goes, na 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 na. She's got the look. She's got the look. She's got the look. She's got the look. What in the world can make a brown girl turn blue? When everything I'll ever do KCHW 102.7 Rock Set and the Look takes us to 8:14. If you're spying us on the webcam, you can tell. Got lots of artists in the studio. I want to welcome back Mr. Dave Andersen. Good morning, Dave.
Thank
All right.
you.
The infamous, I should always say. Infamous Mr.
Yeah,
Dave
I heard the stories earlier.
Yes.
Yeah.
Where's the Posty note?
Well, I have it. It's hanging in my studio still.
You still
okay.
have it. Excellent.
Yes.
All right,
Thank
all
you,
right.
Scott.
All right. All right, round of applause for Dave, I think. Yes, we'll do that. All right. And then beside Dave, we have new to the studio, the beautiful Jen Fuller, correct? All right. And about 6 inches away from that microphone. Help her out there, Tim. Get that in front of her.
Good morning.
All right. And then beside her, you can see him all on the webcam, Mr. Tim Nielsen. Now, a little reminder, if you would like to see some awesome art, you want to log on to either our website, kchw.org, and click on the listen page, or you can go to YouTube and type in KCHW Tube, and yeah, we have a live feed going on right now, although it says it's like medium quality. So, but that's
your new program.
That's kind of what you get though with public radio, anyways, right?
Yeah,
so,
and Scott.
Medium quality. All right. Mr. Tim Nelson from Trails End. How's it going, Tim?
Fantastic, Scott.
All right. You're here today for some art. Chewelah Winterfest for the arts. You've been working on this for a while. It's quite lengthy to try and explain. So what I want you to do before we talk to the artists and talk about some of the art you have is explain kind of where you got the inspiration to do Chewelah Winterfest for the arts and what it is. All right?
Honestly, been talking about it with Dave.
Okay.
And my wife Nandis. We kind of talked about various ways that we could have a show, and Dave still has some ideas. There's other types of shows we might try, but talking with Gail Johannes, and I was picking her brain because of these juried exhibitions also that they have down in Spokane for the Watercolor Society. So Dave told me to go to this site called Cafe, which I did, and I was just amazed at all these public juried exhibitions that are out there and being promoted. So I didn't have time I'm not savvy enough on the computer end of things to really pull that together. So what I did was I announced that I would do it in November. I kind of put together a prospectus and an entry form based on other ones that I kind of looked at, kind of borrowed their little boilerplate here and there, and we put out that second week in December, and we got 90 submissions.
Did that surprise you? It seems like a lot to me.
It's more than I was hoping for 60 to 70.
Okay.
But the reality is, you really do want a larger amount, for the jurors to really do their work.
Immerse themselves in it, right?
Do their work. And I'll let, they can talk about themselves in a minute here. But anyway, they juried it down to 61 pieces, and they got into town on Monday, and we started hanging the show yesterday. Took a little ski break. This is Chewelah. I mean, we have to take advantage of all the wonderful things in this town.
And Dave, no comments about skiing, please. So you got in trouble last time.
Anyway,
we actually this three.
Yeah?
We are incredible skiers. We're the best skiers on the hill. Of course, nobody else was on the hill. There you go. But Jen grew up in Steamboat, and Tim in Portland, me in Utah. So we're pretty good.
All right.
If you saw us up there, you'd been impressed.
You got
We
a
had
nice little
fun.
hill, too. It's,
Nice.
It's beautiful up
All right.
there.
So you're a skier, too?
I am.
Oh, my God.
Could you keep up with these two? Because I've heard they're pretty
yeah.
good.
Come on.
Really? Like
we
amateur
are.
night?
We-
You
yeah,
get ski
we-
circles around them?
Yeah, pretty
We
much.
are a little bit older.
We had to stop and wait a lot.
Let them catch their breath.
For me, not Tim.
I thought you were a world-class skier.
I am.
Okay.
With a broken hip.
only in his mind.
And now it's just a good gentlemanness to always let the girls ski in front, right?
No.
No.
If you knew Jen, you would know that
This is a
that's not-
meritocracy. You got to earn your slopes.
Okay.
So-
All right. I stand corrected.
Anyway,
several of the runs.
back to the
I
show.
do not want to stop. Can you guys not stop? I want to go all the way to the bottom.
Because there's a cold beverage waiting.
That's the same, yeah. Jen skied. You guys stayed in the bar. All right. So we've
Anyway, so the show's hung. After we'll go grab some breakfast after this, and then they're going to go in and start their deliberations. We have two. What to say?
Awards?
Honorable mentions, a third, second, first place, and overall best in show. And Mike and Loretta Bentz generously donated the first place prize. Bud and Diane Evans generously donated the Best in Show prize, award money. And I've had nothing but support with this. With community. I mean, you really got to do these things yourself. You really do.
I got to say this. When Tim talked to me about this idea, I thought it was awesome, but we also knew that he wanted to keep doing the show in the future, and so this was just going to be building momentum for the future. And so there's always a learning curve anytime you do a competitive show like this, and so we're kind of like figuring it out as we're going along here. So
that's the way any event is.
And we've
That's
got,
very true.
good aspiring artists to professional artists.
Yeah.
And
Now, explain
Dave
how
said, don't be surprised in the future if you start getting 200, 300, 400 entries for this type of thing.
you got the ball going.
It'll grow, and we'll just deal with it at that point. Where can we have the show? Is the gallery big enough? Do you tighten the parameters? And do you want X amount of pieces in? I'm learning.
Now, a couple questions. First, is all the art that is getting juried, is it at your location?
Yes.
Or okay, so it's not it's spread out at the
No.
The other people are still in the art walk. I mean, there's art still over the town at the other restaurants and stuff.
Yes.
That people are out and about
Yes,
tomorrow.
we still have the regular art walk.
Now, what happens?
And-
They're jurying it today. What happens tonight?
Tonight, 5:30, the doors open at Quartzsite Brewing.
Okay.
And about 6:30, we'll start the show, the awards presentation, and it'll be me talking a little bit about it like I am right here, and then I'll introduce Dave, and then Dave will yap, and then Dave in turn will introduce
Not long.
Jen.
He looks like a deer in the headlights right
And
now.
then they'll start the presentation. We're still kind of crafting a little thing that has, for the projection side of it,
Now,
so people can see kind of what they both do. And then, once they've made their selection, I'll take pictures of who won what award. and we'll work through the presentation that way. I think it'll be really fun.
All right. So then what happens tomorrow night? It's our normal Thursday night art walk?
Tomorrow night's the first Thursday art walk. Yes, and that's 5:30 to 8. And at these various locations, obviously it's been in the paper.
Yeah.
And usual suspects, Westoff, Excavation, United Church of Christ, Chuvino, Gene Beans, Fired Up Pizza, Gather, Wildflower, and Trails and Gallery.
All right. So, and you've got that. You got that in the newspaper too. So there's a list for everybody there on the art walk.
Yes, and I even updated the map too. It's online, and yeah.
All right. All right. Very nice. Well, let's move on to Mr. Andersen then. Welcome back to the KCHW studios, Dave.
Thank you.
Oh, it's been so long since you've been here. I got something for you.
At least a couple of months. No, another sign to wear around town. Public shaming me.
Public shaming you, flogging.
I was, and it got moved. I'm really sad. Oh no, here it is. So how many times have you been on my show? Like 3?
10, 30,
three or four. And so you've been on the air like 3 or 4 times, right? And so I got you something as an award, kind of. It is a Northeast Washington Community Radio Guild membership form.
No!
I would like you to join the Public Radio Guild and make a donation.
That's the best part. I get a tax write-off.
Now you're on air.
It is a tax write-off.
How can you say no?
It is a tax write-off.
Okay.
So I planned that out this morning as a bit.
I'll defer
I was like,
that
how
to
can
the
I get
gallery.
Dave?
I want to be part of the gold membership.
I was hoping you would choose that one.
Okay. Thank you, Scott.
You're welcome. So, good friends with Tim. You got a lot of history there. You've been in Chewelah more than a couple times now.
Yeah.
From
Many
Portland.
times.
A little bit of background about you and what you like about being here to do this juried art exhibit.
Well, I teach painting and drawing at Clackamas Community College in Oregon City. I'm an artist. I've been showing for many years, and
You've had shows in Chewelah.
I've had shows at Trails End Gallery. And I love coming to Chewelah. I love this area. The people are great. I feel like I know more people in Chewelah than I do in Oregon City, and I'm not kidding.
That could be true.
And the 49, I've been skiing there for at least 18 years maybe. Yeah, something like that. So, and I've seen the resort change and grow, and the population growing a little bit in Chewelah. It's still keeping its small town vibe for me. But like having Paul's Coffee Shop, now Gene Beans, was like a major thing for me. Oh my goodness, there is good coffee here. So it's like,
it's the same family though, it just changed names with the same.
Yes,
family. Okay,
yeah. I know I'm pretty good now. So I enjoy coming here, and of course Tim and Nandis live here now, and you. I mean,
Thank you, Dave.
I see you every time I'm in town.
It's awesome. It's awesome. All right. Well, we're looking forward to you moving here.
Yeah.
Because that's what eventually happens.
Well,
So.
and I get teased about this because I know there's a mayor right now currently, but
But she's only got 2 years left.
okay,
And
so
you got 2
you
years.
got my vote. You have my vote, but you've
Okay.
got to move here soon so that you've lived here long enough within the city limits that you can qualify to run.
I don't even know what the rule is on that.
I'm not sure.
You got to be willing.
It's all in good fun.
Can we get a
think you
mayoral call-in?
I think it would have to be at least a year, so you've got some time here, but you better pick a place.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
A lot of people start out in an RV in Stevens County, so there's an option there.
Well, Tim's got a shed out back that
That's perfect. A lot of people start out in sheds,
Okay.
but don't call it a shed. Tiny house.
Tiny.
There you go.
Yeah, there you
Yes.
go.
Yeah.
Ouch. All right. So you want to be mayor and move to Chewelah.
Yeah.
All right. And what made you want to help Tim with this art exhibit?
He graciously acceded to my request.
There's very few things that Tim we talk about that I'm not willing to do for Tim because he's I got to tell you, this guy, the way he has established the art gallery and the art walk and the fun things that he's doing here just to lift the collective consciousness of the world. So I'm so appreciative of what he's doing here. Plus, I have an out-of-state ski lodge. So
This is true. All right. This is true.
Now, so what kind of things are you looking for? So a lot of locals, I imagine, submitted art for this?
Yeah,
correct?
actually.
So they're probably curious and they might be listening. What are some of the things that when you're looking at these works that that you make your decision with? What are you basing this on?
Well, Jen and I have talked about this a lot, and it being the inaugural Winterfest show, it's going to be very eclectic. There's going to be pieces all across the board and also across experience and skill levels. And so we were being, there's a number of things, and I'm going to talk about this at the brewery tonight later, but like if you look at a graphic equalizer of sound, lows, highs, in-betweens, treble, bass, whatever. Same thing in art world. There's like this graphic equalizer of things, and you could almost put in here compositional elements of negative, positive space. You could put in pattern, scale, color, value, texture, and then somewhere along that continuum there's a word called conceptual. And so some pieces are heavily weighted to the conceptual side, and some pieces are weighted more to the formal side. And so between Jen and I, and Jen I can't wait for her to start talking, but like her work is absolutely incredible, and her understanding of form and space and color, value, craft, and so on is amazing. So, but she works much more in 3D and in installation. I'm much more of a 2D color guy. So together we make quite a good team when we're looking at all these pieces. And we looked at them all digitally and kind of juried the show that way. And then the pieces that were juried in came into the gallery. And then Jen and I have been kind of going through it. Now, I love Jen, there's no doubt about it, but like we do argue about different aspects
quite a bit
of things.
This is fun, though. I mean,
quite a bit.
When I asked you, you said, "Hey, you said, oh, I think I can get this, this gal Jen Fuller. Check out her work. She's a sculptor and does all this amazing stuff." And he goes, "Then we can kind of have the 2D, 3D." Covered. And I do like the fact that there's male female, that there's balance. I think, like I said before, I think the majority of the pieces that have been submitted, I'll bet, are by women artists. And I think it'll help the whole process.
Yeah.
Well, conceptualism is subjective too. So, when you're being judicious about a show, you have to take in all the elements. It can't just be your flavor that you are into as an artist. And so it's important to put a pool of people together that are capable of arguing well, because it's not about being in agreement. You're looking at craftsmanship, shape, color, tone, scale, marketability, things like this when looking at a show. So people
I
in
like
the room,
that as one of the things, the criteria is the marketability of the
well,
product. I like that.
It's super
I think this
important.
makes it a really important show, to be honest with you. It's going to bring up the level, I think, of art.
Back to the gender issue too. Jen has been pushing boundaries all over the world with her work, and kind of a lot of societies are male dominated, and so sometimes women don't get their due. Jen is doing that now, and so like I've had my time in a way, and I'm just happy to be able to jury and judge the show with Jen just because of her knowledge and background and her experience.
David gave me a name tag this morning that said boundary pusher.
Yeah.
It's a sticky note, isn't it?
It should be.
Well, even driving up in my truck the other day, we were like pushing boundaries all the way up there. So.
I don't want to know.
Okay.
All right. So, Jen, the guys are talking really positively about you. I want you to...
I'm sorry.
Tell us a little bit how you got hooked up with these two yokels, and then a little bit about yourself.
Well, David and I have been working together a little bit this year. I've been doing large-scale installation art. I specialize in glass, light, and steel, and I travel around the country making site-specific installations. And community is really important, and I've been developing a roster of small-town sort of interactions because I think that art is sort of the cultural barometer, the health of our society. It's also our inheritance.
Well put.
So bringing art, this is my self-acclaimed name tag, is cultural ambassador. I think it's really important to act as a liaison to educate rural places why art is important, and it's really, really important, but it's hard to describe why often. And so traveling around, doing things like this is a really important part of my ethos as an artist. But Tim has that same ethos. I just did a mirrored piano that's playable for the public. It's left out in public spaces, and I was at the Portland Art Museum, and I just took it to Clackamas Community College with
mirrored
David.
piano.
Yeah, it's
really
kind of
cool
like if Elton
looking.
John and Dr. Dre had a love piano, and it's called the Baller, and it says "Play on Player" on top, and we just leave it out in public spaces.
And it's a working piano?
Yeah, it's a little upright spinet that was donated to a project called Piano Push Play, and we travel around. Artists make pianos, and then they leave them out in public spaces. So I just got one into Clackamas Community College with
It's
David,
awesome.
and so
I want to see
Describe
that.
how
I
it
want to see
Oh,
that.
it's blinding. Let's put it that way. 1,400 hand-cut mirrors, and it's blinding. But
Well, there's something about, and there's a combination of art there, because you've done this piece of art that also makes music, which is art.
Yes.
And there's something that happens with pianos and people, and I love this that you, when you put them in public, because I mean, even back in the days when malls were thriving places in America, and you had the piano store in the mall. I mean,
Absolutely.
I was married to a gal who played magnificent piano, and you go walking by the piano store, and she'd just have to stop and walk in there and play the nicest piano.
Absolutely.
Well, she'd start playing the most beautiful piano, and within minutes, people would start filtering
Congregating,
into the store just to listen to her play. And by the time her 15 minutes were up, the store's full. For people just coming because they heard it and went, oh my God, that's beautiful. I have to go see what's going on. And I love that you're combining those two in public, and I bet you it has the same thing. People sit down, start playing it, and people just congregate.
That's the purpose of that particular dynamic, and I think art in general has that capacity to reach people in a community and encourage people to integrate and to participate. And I think that's why a show like this here in Chewelah, doing a Winterfest and having people regionally coming in, it exposes you to the potentials of people in the community. It gets people interacting with art that might not normally, for a whole variety of reasons.
And it's Winterfest for the arts. We don't know what this is going to lead to in the future, but I just envision it being other things than just gallery specific art. What all could fall into that.
Like,
It
you mean
could be
theater, dance,
Yeah,
music,
Yeah.
exactly.
movement.
Well, and anytime you have
poetry slam, I don't.
And our doors in Chewelah are wide open. I mean, you've set some great. We've got a strong arts guild. You've set a great precedent with what you've started, and now we've got this creative district from the state of Washington.
Right.
I mean, are the roads for Chewelah, and then top it off with the Washington Department of Commerce coming in and laying the new approaches program on us. I mean, Chewelah's got some really neat paths laid out for us where all this can mesh together.
And it does, but I do think what really helps it is this entrepreneurial level stuff that occurs that buttresses the argument and supports
Well, if the people
the
aren't
creative
willing,
district.
Right. Yeah.
That there's relevance. It's not kind of, in some ways, you do kind of have to go in and just grab the bull by the horns and do something.
If the people
which is the way
people
a
on
lot
the
of
ground aren't willing to do it, it don't matter if you're a creative district or not. If you don't have people that are willing,
Exactly, but that I think you kind of have to have the two working hand in hand. One's not going to beget the other, but I think they can help.
It's really important. I don't know how much people understand, especially in small communities. It's not about liking art that's present. It's about creating. This is, I keep emphasizing this, but this is your inheritance. Historically, in every town, city, civilization, where there is art and culture coming in, there is interest, respect garnered from an outside perspective. So foster the arts in this community as though it's your inheritance and the way that the world views you. It's often the first thing you see when you roll into a town is a sculpture coming in. It's just really important to view it as like a gem that you're fostering in your town and in your community. Mm-hmm. It will blossom for you.
You need her to come in and speak at your next meeting at the Creative District.
Well, I'm listening to the conversation, and I think what Jen talks about, in my mind anyway, is becoming a cultural center for entrepreneurship, and you can identify that in a lot of different ways. It could be anywhere from software development to sculptures to art to whatever. And then what Tim just said is it becomes and I love your term you gave me, I don't know, I stole it I guess a while back, about becoming a beacon. You become a beacon of light that people are attracted to, not a warning, because I had somebody say, aren't there warnings? No, it's like a light that people are attracted to, that enhances the cultural well-being of a community, and it recognizes and appreciates where that community came from. Absolutely. And that's really what I see happening with the Winterfest and the Creative District and all these other things that Scott just mentioned. And from my perspective of coming in, because I've been here since 2013, is it's, if you look at the community as a whole, and especially as the community has been growing over the last whatever number of years, there is a huge cultural element in this community that's untapped, in my opinion. And then if you couple that with the idea that, in my opinion, the arts are the basis for future growth of anything, frankly, I don't care what it is.
Absolutely.
Then you become an attractive commodity, I guess, for people to want to come in and live, people to want to be businesses. And that's what's impressed me about this. I mean, and I'm part of the Chamber, and one of the things the Chamber impressed me on is you've got a group of people that get together weekly, frankly, which is unreal for chambers, that are 30 to 40 people that their best interest is, by and large, is how can we make Chewelah better? And that's exactly what Tim's doing with Trails and Gallery. Mm. So it's easy to support, it meets all the criteria.
We did have generous support by the Chamber, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, it was easy.
So,
it was an easy thing for me to bring up and say, okay, we need to support this because, we want to support a local business to begin with, but beyond that, it supports a bigger picture than that. What's it going to do overall? And so when I first became aware of the Winterfest type thing, I visited with Tim, and I had no idea what it was. I mean, there's a Winterfest in Republic. It's a fairly common term per se, but what's going to be unique about Chewelah? And to me, I went to the piece that Peter Rossler did, here a while back with the photographs. And if you start to take a look at that, that's really that impressed me, the cultural background that supports the future. That's really what it did. So, it's easy to support it. It really is. And I think it's going to continue to grow.
I think it's been interesting for the fact that it did bring out people. The Winterfest brought out people submitted who I just didn't know did art, in the area.
That's cool. Yeah.
And so, we had a number of entries from Colville, obviously Chewelah, Deer Park, Loon Lake, Spokane Falls, Coeur d'Alene, Bonners Ferry,
Mesa,
Portland, Arizona, Lacey, Washington, and the neat thing is I've had people already come up to me when I had the drop-off day for the art, February 2nd, I think it was Saturday. Coming in, they're going, oh, I'm already thinking about next year's. This is it. Right. They felt inspired.
Yep. And
I think that's really neat. I really do. And I'm hoping I can, if they're available, lasso the team for next year. And you got to do it right. You've got to raise the money. You need to pay the jurors. This is a lot of professional work that they do. So, everybody's been very kind to me this year. Mm. But the reality is, really the more entries we get in the long run, just the better budget we have for that. We can up the prize money, which further incentivizes more entries. And I think actually Dave said to me a couple weeks ago, he goes, you should track these things. He goes, I'm telling you, 5 years from now, you could get 500 entries. What are you going to do? I said, I don't know, Dave. What are you going to do?
That's a good problem to have, though, right?
Careful what you ask for.
That was an excellent impersonation of Dave.
Why did you do that? I guess I'll watch the podcast later. I missed it.
Can I speak to something you're saying about, with your growth, with your chamber too?
Right.
One of the things that I want to mention, because we started off with this conversation between Dave and I arguing in our debating in our jurying process. As you grow as a community, not to be afraid of an argument. Or
right.
the dissatisfaction of some people towards an art piece or another. When you are growing arts initiatives and presences, it's not always about pleasing everybody. It's about fostering conversation with the community. So, what you're doing with bringing multiple voices into the room, artists from all over, it's meant to foster communication, and conversation across the board.
And educate, I think.
Right.
And educate.
Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking as you guys were talking, when I started getting involved with the Creative District, the questions went, what's a Chewelah? Because nobody had heard of it. Pretty soon is, where is Chewelah? And now the conversation is meaning to, when can I get to Chewelah?
Yeah.
And so, and it's all driven around things like the Winterfest and the Thursday Art Walk and the Chautauqua. And I mean, there's 100+ events going on per year here that people really just aren't aware. And then to me, it's how do you control that awareness so that you protect the identity of the community? So it doesn't become over-commercialized or whatever from that standpoint. And your thing about the argument on the Creative District, there was, I think, initially about 15 collaborative partners that started to put that together. That in itself was unique. You've got 15 collaborative partners, and they went anywhere from the Chamber to the Spokane tribe of Indians. And Diane Evans, made a comment once that these are healthy meetings because we don't agree.
Exactly.
And that's absolutely true. Absolutely true.
So.
Exactly.
Well, let's look at some art and let's do something fun. Let's let you guys jury it.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
All right, we're gonna.
Let me say something, Scott. Here, we usually jury in private.
Yes.
Just because it's almost a brainstorming session where you don't want to be held to every word that you may say.
Let's do it. Let's just do a test or a pretend.
And opinions on art change.
Okay.
That's the other part too. Is a piece can grow on you.
Okay.
Or
all right. So I've switched the webcam over so people that are watching on the camera can see this too. We're just. I guess one of you, since he doesn't have a microphone, somebody's gonna have to tell us about each piece here and where it came from.
This is Tracy Manley.
Tracy,
we know
this is
Tracy.
Tracy Manley.
Tracy did our poster for the Winterfest.
Louder.
So Tracy did the poster for the Winterfest, and I don't. How many pieces she put in? 3?
two.
Two pieces, and we absolutely love her work and her conceptual nature, and also her skill levels.
Yeah,
And-
they're really well.
Yeah, her pieces are put together.
They really are.
And her show was awesome too. That she did too. That was amazing. All right. And what would you say? Comment on it. I mean, when you're jurying these, what kind of steps would you take when you look at that?
Well, I'm looking at craftsmanship, composition, conceptualism. This piece in particular is very sweet to me. When we were looking at it via photograph, I thought it was really large scale, and so I was really excited about it. And when we came into town, it's quite, it's small, it's very petite. It's maybe 1.5 feet long and 6 inches tall. So there's this real execution of fine detail that I didn't think was going to be how I was perceiving it in real time. But I think that there's a real craftsmanship in the way she is applying collage and paint and construction that I'm really drawn to.
Now, is that actually the picture that is in the box, if people can't see it, is that actually painted on there, or is that stuff she put together in a collage?
We've been talking about it. It's collage. I thought it was painting, but it's collage.
Wow.
Hey, here's the thing about collage. I think some people don't appreciate it unless it's painted, and collage is not easy. It's like putting it together and creating this form out of found forms is a really
it's like
great art in
taking
itself.
different jigsaw puzzle pieces and putting them together to make a new puzzle.
A jigsaw puzzle that hasn't even been created. You just rebuild it.
Yeah, different pieces from 100 different puzzles, and you put them together and make a new one.
Yeah, and also, and it's a mixed media piece because there's some sculptural elements on it, and cards and cut paper, and this diagonal that's kind of shooting through the entire composition. I like there's something about that just draws me in, and it makes me a little uneasy at the same time. So.
All right. Next up, Vanna White. He doesn't appreciate that.
So,
I think that was the first one.
to tease someone about that, probably.
I just love this piece.
Yeah.
All right, tell us. Go ahead, Jen. Tell us.
The names. Because I'm not from here. Okay. You're more versed in this.
Rick Jandro. And I'm not sure I've ever met Rick.
You have.
Okay.
Can you tell us a little bit about his history as an
American artist? Lives in.
Just walk across. You're okay. Bear with us. This is live radio.
Rick Jandro lived in Spokane for a while. He is part of the Colville Nation of tribes. And he's a painter. He was a musician. And he lives in, I believe, Nespelem. It's a little, kind of a historical town of about 200 or 300 people over by Grand Coulee. And it has an art history, that town also. It kind of became an art movement there in the, I think, 30s and 40s, maybe the 50s. People were drawn to that area, much in the same way the early Taos painters in 1920s to 30 were drawn to Taos, New Mexico. Anyway, I love his work. I'm just so happy that he submitted a piece, or a couple pieces, for the show. And I will say that we also have him for a solo show at Trails End Gallery. He'll be the July-August show.
Oh, nice.
So what did you like about this piece?
Well, there's three things at play for me. There's kind of this historical tribal representation kind of meeting modernity. Mm-hmm. The crossover where you have traditional references to his ethnicity and his background, and then the characters are in suits, which is very present moment. The color composition is awesome. Where turquoise meets red for me is one of my favorite zones. And then the use of purple, that's kind of one of my favorite combinations of color palettes. It just absolutely pops off the wall in the gallery. It just draws your eye right into the painting. And then the subject, the conceptualism, makes you kind of go, what the heck is happening here? And I like that juxtaposition. Art, often when I view it, it needs to have complexity, because if it's hanging in my home or if it's a daily interaction, I want to be questioning the piece a year from now or 3 years from now. But that's my style. I like work that challenges me. So it does that to me. It draws me in, but then makes me ask why, what, repetitiously, and not really land on a final piece. So I'm really interested in meeting him and seeing what he has to say about it, where his perspective when he made the piece was coming from.
And you're right about the color. That's the first thing I grabbed. It was like, ooh, I like it. And I, without even analyzing what it is, it's just the colors of it. You're like, oh, I like that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say I love this one too, and he's got another piece in the show that, I mean, he's obviously a great painter. He knows how to use his medium. But what I'm liking about this one is I like the oversized hands. There's an emphasis on that, the symbolism of the crow or raven, the reference to the face painting, and the dressing up. Now, like I look at like the figure in the background as kind of being like the clown in Native American culture, which is almost like the jokester, the prankster, but also the one that is probably the most sage of the group. I don't know, pulling at people's tails and so on. But also in this one, you see this flow of diagonals kind of starting from the lower left to the upper right. So in the background, the branches are kind of leading you off to the right and kind of creating that diagonal again, which I'm kind of into. Anyway.
Yeah, he's got a really, the main character, what I would describe as the main character, has a really interesting expression of self-contemplation, too. So you don't know who's the wise one. Is the crow, is the main character, or is the more jokester?
It almost feels like something you would see on a tarot card.
Yeah, a bit, yeah.
And kind of ambiguous gender, too. So it's kind of got this fingers going in every direction for me. I like it.
Yeah. All right, next up, Tim. Now, Dave, are you familiar with this one as well?
This is Melissa Cole.
Yes.
I've had her in the gallery.
Melissa Cole,
Yeah,
if you're
still
watching
have
with us online. All right, go ahead, Dave.
I like Jen going first because then I have time to think. Well, Melissa has got some incredibly interesting work. This one is like a 3 pieces put together. A lot of her paintings are
like
just
tiles almost.
Yeah.
It's an assemblage, yeah.
Yeah, assemblage, and she works in bright colors too. But this one's a little more subdued. But also her surfaces are very textural. It's almost like you want to come up and touch them. Again, there's that diagonal. Look at that rabbit creating that strong diagonal coming down through the form. And of course, when you're speaking of animal symbolism, turtles and rabbits have their place and have certain meanings, and their interaction is kind of interesting. The turtle is either flying or swimming, and the rabbit's hopping over it. Okay.
I think the turtle's over the rabbit.
Yeah, but this was one that we mutually really liked a lot.
Now, she has an interesting background, too. Oregon State graduate in zoology. Became... Wow. She learned how to dive. We figured out that we both took from the same instructor there at Oregon State, but she was a diver, I believe, down in Costa Rica, and that's how she met her husband, Brandon, who does underwater photography, and they travel all over the world and do underwater photo shoots with sea animals and creatures for governments, for private institutions. And she's been painting, I believe, about 20 years. But I think when you figure that out, it's kind of like your background, almost getting your degree in entomology before painting. There's
weird.
things that inform what you're doing. I think how you look at things, and we had a real successful show with her at the gallery, and she's just real interesting, and her pieces. People find them
That's why that looks
universally
familiar. I've seen it
approachable.
Right.
Yeah, there's a real accessibility in this work. The textures draw you in. The content that she is painting, with these nature figures, they speak to all of us, I think, kind of universally, with rabbits and turtles and ravens. There's a real universality, I can't say that, in that work, but the texture draws you in. It makes it really playful. Her dimensionality in the paintings makes you want to be around them.
Yeah, I also see most painters use brushes, but Melissa, I know she must use a brush, but she also uses other tools like to scrape lines in and some non-traditional tools of applying paint.
Like using a sponge and making a dot or something like that.
Sponges, but there's like a wall scraper or something she's used to put texture into the depth of the paint. It's just...
Yeah, and this piece is like an assemblage of panels. It's, dimensionalized just by what she's painting on. And then the other piece in this show has glass tiles on it. So she's not just thinking in two-dimensional, painterly ways.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Tim, how long has it taken you to put up these 90 pieces of
That's
art?
what I'm thinking.
And does each one have like a name of the artist of who created? Wow, so there's just a... All right, they're high-fiving.
My professionals here have been... The show is hung at this point. I need to go back in after breakfast and go around and put the cards up for all the pieces. And then... once they're relaxed and ready, they'll come in and finish on the jury side and make the selections for the awards.
Well, it's going to be tough, you guys. Soak him for a big breakfast.
We are.
And he said he's
Thank you,
taking
Scott.
He said he's taking you. So that means he's paying, too.
One of the things, I haven't seen any of Tim's shows. This is my first time to Chewelah, and I'm coming back. I really like it here, so thanks for
Excellent.
having me,
I have
guys.
her booked for a show
Yeah.
in 2020. Yeah.
It's an addiction.
Look forward to that
I
one.
really like this town. It's very sweet. But this show in particular, in all the shows that I've seen in the last year, is very vibrant. When we juried the show, we didn't capture the vibrancy that was coming in because, the photos, it wasn't reading this way. When you walk into the gallery, it is holy color punch. It is so fantastically dynamic. I'm really excited to see this gallery is so lovely, and then this much work in the gallery is really powerful, but the tonality is really cohesive amongst all the work. So come in for a very vibrant and colorful expression of your area. It's awesome.
It looks awesome.
Yeah, it's very cool.
But there's sculpture, large, small, ceramics, watercolor, mixed media pieces, acrylics.
Rattle can. Spray paint.
There's a spray paint one?
There's
That's
several.
right up my alley.
several.
Wow.
There's some very interesting work, and I honestly, from all the first Thursdays that I used to go to in Portland, this would hold with a lot of the galleries in Portland.
If not
this
better.
Is
Yeah. I see them all, so if not better, because the vibrancy of this show is awesome.
There you go. Jen said it.
good show.
All right. So not only tomorrow night will you be able to walk the streets and see these 91, is that what you said? Juried art pieces?
No, 90. There were 90 submissions.
90 submissions.
61 were juried through.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. But that's a lot, so it's huge. And then also throughout the other locations, you've got Brad Walker at Fired Up Pizza, Mark Maxwell at Sporties, Candace Haltberg at
Haltberg
Gene
Bennett.
Beans.
Yeah.
Haltberg Bennett, thank you very much. At Gene Beans. Steve Baran at Westoff Excavation. Jacqueline Brewer at Wildflower. Wendy Coleman at Gather. Prayer Shawl exhibit going on at the United Church of Christ. Nicole Eggert at Chavino. Jennifer Carr at the New Creators Workshop. And I think they let you do your own art over there as well, too. So they got a bunch of, I know Chuck said the other day, they got a bunch of like art kits that people can get when they come in. So, all right, something for the kids.
Sorry.
Jen, you can get an
I was
art
going to say,
kit.
I don't do two-dimensional very well, so they need to give me a kid's kit.
They'll even help you.
I really think that we'll get a good crowd tonight.
All right, and tonight, of course, at the brewery, starting at 6:30.
Doors open at 5:30.
Doors open at 5:30.
Lola's Good Eats.
Okay.
Will be
so you got
serving.
food outside right there that you can get, and then the presentation between
We'll
6:30
start the
and
show
8.
about 6:30.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And it usually goes about an hour, and then probably around 8 o'clock I'll migrate back over and open up the gallery because I know that we've got out-of-town people and
A sneak peek? Is that what you're saying?
Basically, yeah.
Sneak peek after the
Yeah.
brewery. All right.
So-
we can do that.
well,
All right.
some people it's maybe hard for them to travel 2 evenings in a row.
Sure.
So I want to make sure that they get a
You
chance.
get to hang out with
Exposure's
all the
there.
beautiful people and talk art.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yes.
Fancy. Keep your finger up. You too,
But
Dave.
it's fun, It's not just the show itself, but it's all the artists that will be represented at the show.
Yeah.
And you really, I know that some are coming on Thursday and some are coming on Wednesday, and I'm really hoping Rick comes because I want to.
It's
haven't met him,
going to be a good couple days in the streets of Chewelah for sure, and bringing in a bunch of people.
Yeah,
to
the
the
weather's
area.
Weather's going to be
Gonna
perfect.
cooperate,
Yeah.
yeah. Especially
this
tonight.
is
It's been a really nice time.
This is a good way to celebrate the tail end of winter. Now, next year, I will say that given that we have this many submissions and this much art and people spread out from different parts, next year it will be a 3-month
A 3-month
long show.
exhibition.
This year it's just March, April, but my plan is for it to be February, March, April. And I think it'll just give people more opportunity. That's a lot of art to look at, and you you could just keep coming back on the first Thursdays if you don't have time to drop in
Rotate
during
every
the week.
time.
There's just a lot of art to look at.
And what I found coming through your gallery too is you can go through on one of these artists and you can see it, and then you can come back through a couple weeks later and see it again, and you pick up new stuff. You know, it's like watching that movie that you watched a year ago, but you go, hey, I never noticed that, and you pick up all these different things from it too. So I encourage that too. Multiple trips through Tim's. All right.
Well, it's really, I think this show is going to change my trajectory, how I look at the gallery too. The shows, like I'm booked deep into 2021.
Well, I want to urge everyone listening to get out tonight. Support Tim and what he's doing with his art gallery and these First Thursday Art Walks, and, of course, this Chewelah Winterfest for the arts. And we have out-of-towners that have come in to help with this event and jury it, and there will be your presenters tonight, Dave Andersen and Jen Fuller. Get out and support them tonight, too. Dave, I don't know Jen that well, but Dave is a heck of a fun guy just to visit with. and the doors open at 5:30.
Spread that around. I'm an introvert.
That early hour before the show starts tonight, the stuff that comes out of Dave's mouth will amaze you.
Please come talk to
without the
us.
8-second delay,
We
you should
are
hear me.
approachable.
You know, I think this is an important show too, for the fact that to have two professional, competent artists mirror
Can I have that in writing?
back.
Sounds like a PR tagline to me.
Mirror it back to the artist. You know, even if you were a professional artist, I think you still get something out of really good critique.
Yeah, conversation.
You know,
is,
it's helpful. It's going to help. A lot of the aspiring artists are going to be
And people
better artists because of this.
People might want to know more about the two of you. So, Jen, where could people online see some of your art,
Yes.
maybe?
two places. JenFullerStudios.com is where my portfolio kind of lives, but Jen Fuller Studios on Instagram is where all the mayhem happens of process. And my being here, I put stories up today about Dave and I being on your guys'.
You were upset I didn't have
I was upset.
Instagram hashtag. I'm sorry.
Well, I just was.
I'll work on that.
Instagram.
Let me emphasize this Instagram thing. Jen and I kind of started knowing each other on Instagram, and then we found out that we had actually had interactions like 12 years previous, and then we were like, oh my goodness, how fun is this? Anyway, you got to go to her Instagram to see her work, because like you will be able to see a scope of what she's done in the last 3 years, which is absolutely incredible. These installations that are huge and beautiful and sound and video, and when you're using the term beacon, it's like even the mirrored piano in the Niemeyer Center at Clackamas Community College, she brought in go-go lights and put on it, and so you've got this thing happening, just beaming out of the windows of the entire, it transformed the entire
They're
place.
disco lights and go-go girls.
Yeah, there we go. But for artists listening to this, go get yourself an Instagram if you don't have one, because it's this community for us to be able to meet each other. That's how we've all kind of assembled here. And
I'm lazy. I put my stuff up there rarely. I have an Instagram account. But
I'm a visual artist. It's really hard to talk about it, right? So if you want to see my work, I can sit here and wave my arms around and try to explain these things. But even in video and photograph, it's hard to showcase three-dimensional and scalability. So, So anyway,
and you've got links to your social media at JenFullerStudios.com.
Yeah. It's all up there. Yeah.
And Mr. Dave Andersen, how can people find out more about you?
I'm on Instagram as well, Fruit Mandu, one word, like Catmandu. Only Fruit Mandu. Well, I became famous for doing giant dumb fruit heads. I can't help it. That's part of my legacy, I guess. But I got to say one thing, too, about you guys. Thank you for letting us come here. You guys are changing the face of Chewelah just by being here and allowing us here. And I also want to thank Tim for making this all happen, but also especially Jen for taking time out of her busy schedule. She's incredibly busy with all the work she's doing right now. Just to be here. So I'm.
Oh, thanks for having us. We
welcome.
really like your little town.
This
is fabulous.
I'm the first person in America, I think, who has ever done art on radio. I am the first person who ever did magic on the radio. I actually had a magician do a magic show on the radio.
That's awesome.
Who pestered you for art on the radio?
Art on the radio.
That was you, Tim. That was you. All right. Come out.
Stir the pot, baby.
That's right. Come out and see all the crazy people tonight, beginning at 5:30 at the brewery, and of course, course, we have our beautiful First Thursday Art Walk tomorrow night on the streets of Chewelah. Thank you so much, Tim. Yep. Thank you, Jen.
you.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you, Scott.
All right. Big round of applause for all of you. And we'll keep public radio going with a thank you to our sponsor for this morning's show. That's God-Fearing Brothers Auto Sales and Auto Repair.
It's 9:06.
Your KCHW morning show made possible by a donation from God-Fearing Brothers Auto Center. God-Fearing Brothers specializes in auto services, including repair, maintenance, and detailing. They also stock tires, provide collision repairs, including glass, and they have an auto sales lot on the corner of Highway 395 and Main Street at the light. For more information, you can visit the